Hello, hello and welcome. Did you know that in VS Code you can make extensions literally in 3 lines? Now, talk is cheap, so let's make an extension. So here's the BetterComments extension, right? And we're going to make it in 3 simple lines, right? So this extension gives colors to your comments and makes them better, right? So here's an example. There's a normal comment, very boring. You might want to alert your readers to something. You might want to have a question, or you might want to have a useful remark. Right? Now this is a very useful extension, but what if we didn't have this extension and we wanted to make our own home-baked version? How would we do it? Right? For example, maybe I want to say, here's a question. How are you? Maybe I want to have an alert. Look, it's broken. Right? And maybe I want to have a useful remark. Neato, petito. How do I get these to be colored? Right? Making an extension can be quite involved, but really, we can just say there is a regular expression here, the here and here, and we just want to color them with some CSS styles. So we'll say E.decorate regular expression. And we'll give the regular expression we want, which in this case is question, dot star, and we'll provide the style. Let's say we want the color to be cyan, and then we'll literally just press Command E, right? And now our questions are all colored, right? So that's neat. And of course, we can copy paste this line a few more times, change the phrase question to alert. Let's do something interesting. Let's say background color. And let's make the background color pink. And literally I'll say Command E. And now you can see all alerts have been colored. And finally, we can do the same thing for remark. Let's make the color green. And let's add the CSS property for font weights. Let's make it bold. Okay, and there you go. Now we have bolds. And of course, if the regular expression doesn't match, it goes away, right? So that's really neat. Okay, so the trick is in this Easy-Extensibility, right? This VS Code extension is a meta extension. It literally lets you write extensions by writing just a few lines of JavaScript and then pressing Command E. Okay, before we get into this E, let's talk about the traditional approach on how to make extensions with VS Code. Right? For example, if you want to make an extension that says hello world, a very simple extension, right? And then we run it by pressing Command E, and look, the phrase hello world appears, right? Hello you, and then I just press Command E, and that evaluates it, and then I see the message down here. How do we normally make this extension? This is a single line extension. How is it normally made? Well, first you need to make a directory, and in your directory you can say my first extension, right? And then you go into that directory, and then you generate some code, right? You use this UMN code generator, and then it runs and it asks you some questions about how to set up this extension, right? It's taking a bit of a while on my machine. There we go. I want a JavaScript extension, hello world, and then we'll just press enter a few times. Right, what could possibly go wrong? And then it creates a billion files, because if you want a simple extension that just says hello world, you need a million files. Right? After all the files are created, we can open it and we can take a look at it. Right? So unfortunately, because of the classical approach generates way too much, there's a lot of bookkeeping. Even though all we want to do is say hello world, there's so much bookkeeping that it's actually hard to find the logic of what you're trying to do or what you're trying to accomplish. So let's open this with code, our new project, and let's take a look at it. It's opening, here it is. Okay, now that it's open, right, yes, trust all the authors. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, so here's all the files that were created for us, but the one that really matters is this extension.js file. All right, so we can take a look at that. and it's got a lot of code in here, right? It's got a lot of code. It's got about 40 lines in here, right? And really, there's a lot of low-level stuff like VSCode .commands .register command, right? You know, there's VSCode .window .show information message. It's a lot of stuff when really all we want to say is hello world. Okay, so this is really all we want to do. Right, this single line, number 24, is all we want, but we had to generate an entire project just for this goal. That's kind of annoying, especially when you want to just get something done super quick. You want to automate something with VS Code. You don't want to write an extension to automate it. You just want to write a few lines of JavaScript and have it be built in. And that's what the Easy-Extensibility extension does for us. Right? And of course, to actually run this code, we have to open up an host development environment, which can be quite tedious. So thankfully, we have Easy-Extensibility, right? And what this extension does for us is it lets us make extensions just by writing code anywhere, and it becomes part of part of VS Code, right? So let's take a look at that some more. So here's the 3 lines we wrote, right? That was really neat, okay? And we can of course do other interesting things. Instead of a message, console.log, say bye-bye, and then I just press Command E, right? And now it shows up down here as a message box, right? But for example, I have these 3, and maybe a new extension I want is I want to highlight the current word. Maybe I want to highlight the current word green and bold, right? How would we make an extension for this, right? The traditional approach has far too much bookkeeping, and the only way to test it is in a host development environment. But with the current approach, you just press Command E to run your code, right? So we want to highlight the current word green, for example. So let's make a function called highlight current word, okay? And of course, we want it to use the Easy-Extensibility API, so we'll pass in an argument for E, and then we'll say let word equals E.selection. We want the current selection. Let style, how do we want to highlight it? Let's use this style. It's a nice style to use. And finally, we'll just do the same thing as up here. We'll just say E.decorateRegexp, this word with this style. Okay. Let's get rid of all this other stuff we no longer. Let's keep it. What could go wrong? So we want to use this function. So let's highlight it, and as always, we'll say Command E to register this word, to register this function. So you can see down here we have a new function, and this new function is now part of VS Code. Right? It doesn't have to be loaded in, it's just part of VS Code. So for example, look, Ma, I did a thing. So here's my phrase, and I want to highlight the phrase did. So I select it, I press Command H to get the user's palette, and then I say highlight current word. Right? And there you go. It became green. Right? So that's fantastic. Right. Now, of course, we want to be able to reuse this going forward. So how do we reuse these expressions, right? For example, if I reload my editor window, everything goes away, right? But we want to be able to save these for future use, right? And to save these for future use so that they're loaded in each time, Easy-Extensibility gives us something called an init.js file. Right? So we press Command H and we say, please give me a template for init.js. I don't have one. So let's click that and it will generate a template for us. Right? And here's a template with a bunch of stuff inside it, right, to get us started. Right? So welcome, and here's some examples and how to add commands and whatever. Okay? So let's do Command H and let's do so now that we have an init file, for example, let's try reloading the window. The purpose of an init file is that it's loaded every time you open your VS Code. So if we reload our window, the init.js file should load. All right. And we'll get a nice little pop-up message. Look at that, init.js loaded. And where did this message come from? I didn't write this message, but it's part of the init.js. So when the init.js loads, everything inside it is executed. all this arbitrary JavaScript that you wrote just gets executed. No auxiliary extensions. Super neat stuff. Okay, so we can take our function. Right, so all of our highlighting is gone. Very unfortunate. We can take all of this and we can just stick it in our init. Right? So let's just put it at the very top, for example. Okay. And let's press Command H and let's say, please reload my init file. And now when I reload my init file, everything gets executed. Right? So in particular, right, these decorate expressions will also be executed. Okay. Oh. All right. And we can also, of course, get the same behavior if we reload the window. When we reload the window, our init.js file loads. Super neat. We get our handy dandy message again. Right? And all of these things will load. Right? In particular, our highlight current function should still be there if we press Command H. Highlight. Oh, it didn't load. That's unfortunate. Oh well, not a big deal. We can just select everything ourselves and load it manually by pressing Command H. Maybe I did something silly. Oh well. Anyhow, so our highlights, there they are, right? And our new function, here it is, right? We can press Command H and we'll see highlight current word. All right. So let's highlight this word welcome. Command H, we'll say highlight current word. There you go. Right. Oh, I reloaded the screen too many times and it seems I've lost my screencast. So let's bring that back, Command E, and now you should be able to see my screencast. Okay, excellent. Now, there's a problem with our highlight toggle, right? I have to press Command H to open up the user palette, and I have to type it in and look at it. The name's kind of icky. Let's give it a better name. All right. So let's say commands equals, and then let's give it highlight the currently selected word. Okay, let's get rid of that name. And now let's select all of this and say Command E. Now if I go to this word and I say Command H, I can type in highlight. Oh, did we call it highlight? We did call it highlight. Command E. Oh, sorry about that. I wrote a silly function. Too much JavaScript. There we go. Let's write a anonymous function. And then there you go, we got our function. And now we'll say Command H, highlight. There's the original one we defined, and here's the new one. Look at that, highlight the currently selected word. Nice phrasing. There you go. So now we have this word here. Okay. And that can still be quite annoying. What if instead we don't want to have to select a word, press Command H, and then, look it up. That can be quite annoying. So an alternative approach is to give this a key binding, such as command plus M H. M for my command, H for highlight. And so now we have a JavaScript object. Okay, and let's select all of this, Command E to execute it. Now let's go to a word and say Command M H. There you go. Command M H to be able to select that. So that's really neat. And of course, you could do any arbitrary JavaScript you want. For example, let's do insert timestamp. And let's make this a function command IT for command insert T, and then E.insert E.shell date, right? And let's just press Command E, right? And there you go, right? Of course, we want it to be a function, silly me. And now we'll say Command E, and now we've registered a new function, and anywhere we want, we can just say Command I T. Cool. Command I T. There you go. And we got our timestamp. Let's do another one for fun. Command I T. There you go. So you can write arbitrary JavaScript, give it to key bindings, run it and test it here in place in your VS Code. So your VS Code becomes a complete computing environment, right? Super neat stuff. Bye.